Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
Ah, look at all the lonely people. Ah, look at all the lonely people. Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where a wedding has been. Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? All the lonely people. Where do they all come from? Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. I am your host, Eric Hellberg. And you know, we're like Einstein over here, man. We have no special talents. We're just passionately curious about all things pertaining to men. How in the hell did we get here? And where is it that we want to go? We know we're living a month and a day, man. I'm going to trademark that mantra. Don't take it from me. I'll come find you. Nah, if you want it, use it. We're living a month and a day. You know what? All the lonely people, where do they all come from? I'm going to tell you there's a bunch of them here in the United States. I'm going to tell you there's a bunch of them all over the world. More people than ever before, and more people isolated and alone than ever before. Why don't we begin, and I'm going to have to build out a story on this, man, because really most people don't know their history. And if you do not know your history, you will never be immune to the ravages of what will befall you. It always repeats itself. That's why we have to be cognizant. And I will tell the story of Chief Red Eagle and what actually transpired in the modern day state of Alabama here in the great United States of America. But Chief Red Eagle, this was after him and Andrew Jackson. Yes, the 7th president of the United States and the gentleman who embosses our $20 bill. They had already gone to war with one another. They had both killed numerous people on each side. Andrew Jackson's men decimating the Indians of the Creek Red Sticks tribe. And also Chief Red Eagle, a.k.a. William Weatherford, yes, he was half white, had decimated all the American forces at Fort Mims. Another story for another day. But these two warriors who had tasted each other's death became friends. And in fact, when Chief Red Eagle was around as he was growing up and sometimes went by the name William Weatherford, they lived at a trading post in Alabama that was inhabited by both whites, meaning the European settlers who started America, as well as that Indian tribe known as the Creeks. So it is possible to live in harmony and live together with people different than you. But Chief Red Eagle said, angry people want you to see how powerful they are. Loving people want you to see how powerful you are. So remember that for your children, your spouse, your loved one. Let them see you angry less. Don't try to demonstrate power over them. Let them see how powerful they are to you with the love that you exhibit towards them. Thank you, Chief Red Eagle. Why are these Indian people so much smarter than us? My goodness. Anyways, you know what that got me thinking of? Let's go back to the days of Ronald Reagan. Now we know as Ronald took that old second term, he also had what we're talking about today, diminished faculties. We now know that he had the onset of Alzheimer's, which ultimately led to his death. This was a hardy man. This was an outdoorsman. He was never more at peace than he was on the back of a horse and riding around, I believe they called it Rancho Cielo there in the Ranch of the Sky there in California. And that's when California was also great as well. It's a beautiful place. It has everything. It's a shame what has happened to it. But Ronald Reagan was losing himself. He was a man buried inside his head, and he was no longer able to function as effectively. But one thing I noticed about Nancy Reagan, as nutty as a fruitcake as she was, and we know that prior to that second term, she would have all these doggone mystics and I don't want to dare say occultists, but tarot readers and all this stuff and going through this and that. And hey, on one side, you can hold up your religious hand and say that is sinful, and the Bible directly actually talks about it. On the other side, let's move into compassion. Not compassion from sin, but compassion for her husband. When she saw that Ronnie, as she would call him, was slipping away, because we know that during Iran-Contra and all that, whereby old Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North was taking the fall for an entire country, although he was a small fry. President Reagan was napping, right? And then he became more out of it as meetings went on down the road. But she started ushering him out of the spotlight. She started diminishing his roles because he had some pretty capable folks around him. I'm not going to say they were honest folks, but they were very capable in both their stage and bushcraft that they employed all around the world. No pun intended upon VP Bush, previous director of the CIA, everything that happened in Central and South America and really all over the world at that time. But he had very capable people, right? Bill Casey, head of the CIA, Caspar Weinberger, Secretary of State. Oh, yeah. Then we who did he also have in there? The guy who eventually became Secretary of State, Jim Baker. All these dudes, icons. Well, she wasn't going to let him embarrass himself. Nancy was not going to let people think of him in that way. They knew Ronald Reagan, and she wanted them to know that Ronald Reagan. Juxtapose that with Joe Biden. The more foolish Joe Biden looks, the more they cavort him around. And I'm getting differing views. Some people are saying he's staying in, he's inextricably tied, he cannot be removed. But we know that he has resigned himself after the debate. I don't know if they are still there, but they went to a pilgrimage, per se, at your expense, at Camp David, so that they could, I guess, pontificate. Since he is a Catholic, we'll say the pontiff, right? And they were going to debate on whether he should remain as the incumbent president, but the presumptive nominee to complete that task. And did you know that Joe Biden, I don't know if this is dementia, I don't know where he grabbed it from, but he said his most trusted advisor and the smartest man that he knows is Hunter Biden, who is urging him to carry forward. If that is the smartest man you know, I'm going to tell you, he must have a very good, sinister, and calculating mind. I will give him that. But the smartest man that you know, Hunter Biden, is he, Joe Biden? That calls some other things into question. But Jill, wouldn't genuine love, meaning demonstrating how powerful a person is because you love them so, wouldn't that be to shield them, to possibly remove them? You know he's embarrassing the country. And you know he's an embarrassment to the Democratic Party. So two juxtapositions, two entirely different approaches. And I thought we would start today with that. Moreover, we know in a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court, why they have waited so long. I have not one inkling. Maybe they see Trump's momentum going, and all these guys cast their gazes where the gazes can benefit them the most. And that even includes our Supreme Court justices. But they have now granted in that 6-3 decision partial immunity for President Trump's direct actions while in office, meaning administrative actions. There could perhaps be some culpability down the road for offline actions once he was out of office. But for now, that is good enough. And we're not going to hear anything more about it until this election concludes. So is it calculated? I don't know, but it was very good to hear. So maybe we're starting to clean house. And under those auspices, let's talk about my show sponsor, OldCountrySoap.com. It won't just get you clean. It'll let you enjoy the process. These are Coconut oil bars of soap with bentonite clay. Therefore, they are non-comedogenic. They will help remove impurities instead of fixate them in your skin with that bentonite clay. Infused with essential oils, hand cut, hand cured for a month, right there in Burbank, South Dakota. They will ship anywhere. Obviously, if you're outside of the continental United States, it is going to be more. But they will get you your stuff typically within a week, and if you order enough of it, shipping will be free. Use the best soap in the world and use my promo code CHAOS20. Elon will be glad to help you for 20% off. OLDE is how you spell it. OldCountrySoap.com. Many episodes, man. Many episodes coming up. Drop me a line and let me know what you'd like to hear about. You want to hear about how President Bush and President Clinton stole 90% of the relief funds after the earthquake in Haiti, and how companies like Levi's still artificially suppress the market by providing the Haitians $1.50 a day? You want to hear how a country that is contiguous to the Dominican Republic, while it is prospering, Haiti is still essentially a slave nation by design? You want to hear about fallen religious leaders like Robert Morris and, I hated to hear it, Tony Evans. We don't know exactly what happened, but he stepped down. We've already gotten into the 501c3 blanket that really encapsulates a church, enslaves a church, and prohibits it from talking about the word of the Lord, sin, and anything that is actually noteworthy if you're going to aspire to something bigger than yourself, i.e. your ego. That is what makes a fallen man more fallen. And all ego should stand for is edging God out. And guess what? Women have it too. Both men and women were born with an ego. On that same note, should we get into T.D. Jakes? He's been diddling with the diddler. We know that. And we know if he's been diddling with the diddler, as my son says, Oprah's probably not far behind. Maybe she sent Stedman instead. She was with Gail. I have not one inkling, but we can certainly talk about it. I got to get back into Epstein's list. I've been a little bit remiss. And did you know that Epstein's list, if you look at some of those characters involved on that guest book, it runs all the way up to the Dalai Lama. Now, I didn't say it was the Dalai Lama, but maybe people very close to him. So even that genteel man dressed in a dress, maybe there's more to him than meets the eye. There always is. Everyone who pretends to be so good typically is so bad. Food for thought. Put that feather in your cap, man. Now we know that the Israelites, the Jews, are God's chosen people. He made covenant with them. God never breaks his promises. Now, if you are a theologian and you want to debate whether that covenant is still in good standing, you guys have at it. You aren't doing your job anyway. You won't talk about sin. You won't talk about how it is we are to truly live our lives. You won't build out men and hold them accountable and give them correct teaching by which to govern their lives with. It is incumbent upon us, but church, you have failed. You've already heard me talk about it in the episodes. You'd rather debate something safe than to confront this hellhole that we are currently living in now. And if we're going to talk about Israel, I like Mr. Cohen, their current head of the Mossad. I think he's a modern-day James Bond. He is the perfect spy master. And, he looks the part. Check him out. But what I am going to say is just like any other faith and or religion on this planet, obviously, if you're not fulfilling your calling in that religious aspect, let's say you're a Baptist. Well, if you're not living up to the Baptist creed, well, you're probably just another sinful man, and that is every single one of us. But you're probably not causing people harm. In fact, you may just solely be doing harm to yourself. But if you get off track, say, in the Muslim faith and you're not living up to the T, we want you to not live up to the T because we know if you do, that means we may lose our head. That's a whole different story. But I'm going to tell you that there is a pronounced Israeli influence in the United States of America. And I'm not saying that in an anti-Semitic fashion because we all have failings. But I want to build out a program. And I'm thinking of talking about, could they have possibly been involved in 9/11? Have we already forgotten that? Something as groundbreaking as that, like a nuclear blast, whereby we are still dealing with the fallout. And everyone wants to hush-hush on 9/11. You're not interested in how it could have possibly have occurred? Who all was involved? It's kind of much akin to the Kennedy assassination, wouldn't you say? a watershed event, but it got buried, and it got buried on purpose. All right, well, let's see. We started with an engine, and that's right, I said engine. And I ain't talking no bad red man. Don't get riled up over here. I'm saying it with the utmost respect. You've heard in previous episodes where I talk about that we have a cabin, and literally driving distance, we're on Mescalero Apache lands within 15 minutes of leaving our cabin. And because of my curiosity, I have spoken to many of them. I have hiked with some of them looking for elk sheds. And because of that, they knew that there was, what would you call that? An honest curiosity about the ways of old, their tribe, their people. It culminated into them inviting our whole family, and we got to take part in a really awesome religious ceremony of theirs where young ladies were coming of age, and they gave us carte blanche. It is fascinating. And when I am in those mountains, I just picture those Mescalero Apache warriors, fully adorned like you see in the movie, sitting atop horseback, taking it all in. They could either be taking in the splendor of God's majesty, who they call the Great Spirit, or they could be looking down to go and approach something that they needed to hunt. Who knows? But I would love to know all of their ways. They were an amazingly industrious, hardy, creative, and caring people. So for the interest of time and where all we're going to go, I already know what I'm going to release for the rest of this week. I knew we wanted to set sail in a little bit different way, adjust our sails, catch the wind in a different direction, really just to detox from some of the heavy stuff we were talking about. So we will go from Chief Red Eagle, from the Creek Sticks tribe down in Alabama, and let's move up to the northern central part of the United States of America as we know them today, and let's go to the renowned Sitting Bull, the great Sioux leader. You know what he said? Warriors are not what you think of as warriors. The warrior is not someone who fights, and there were no better fighter than these Indians, because no one has the right to take another life. The warrior, for us, is one who sacrifices himself for the good of others. His task is to take care of the elderly, the defenseless, those who cannot provide for themselves, and above all, the children, the future of humanity. Yet that came from Sitting Bull, an uncivilized man, right? I would vote for Sitting Bull as president right here and now. Let's turn back to God, man. Let's turn back to our true divine nature. And let's get to work. So until next time on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast, I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.
Until next time, like and subscribe to the Comfortable in Chaos podcast.